All right, so here we go. Descent into Avernus. And there you've got that's kind of the classic Baldur's Gate symbol from the Baldur's Gate video games. And this is the premium cover, of course. The other cover is going to have different art on it, but this is what my game store had in stock. It's pretty. I'm cool either way. I'll usually buy the premium cover as a secondary book for collecting if I want to. I usually don't buy it from a main one, but it's fine, and it's very pretty. The main cover is her name Zariel, or there's like an angel on the cover. So anyway, let's open this up and see what's going on. And again, I'll be happy to answer questions from chat. So there is a big fat demon, devil demon, something like that. Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. That's the cover, and here is the disclaimer. The disclaimers is always great. It says this adventure is a work of fiction aimed at providing you and your friends with many hours of fantastic entertainment. Although devils and the nine hells play prominent roles in the story, the evil they represent is meant to be fought and overcome. Wizards of the Coast fully endorses the kicking of evil's butt. Let darkness fall and light prevail. We strongly advise that you not play this adventure backward, lest Asmodeus appear in a puff of smoke to talk politics as archfiends are wont to do. So, of course, that's a reference to the famous, back in the 80s, you place records backwards or whatever, and, you could hear demonic voices or phrases or something. Let's see here. Yeah, and this is another Hydro 74, the artist that does a lot of this premium stuff. Says the main story creators are Adam Lee, he was the lead, then James Introcaso, Ari Levitch, Mike Merles, Lisa Penrose, Christopher Perkins, Ben Petrosor, Matthew Cernett, Kate Welch, Richard Witters, and Sean Wood. And then story consultants were Joe Manganiello, who you may know, he's an actor that's big into D&D. He's got the Death Saves clothing line, and Jim Zub, who's definitely a big name. He does a lot of the D&D comic books too. So, all right. So the contents, I'll run through the contents real quick, and I'm keeping an eye on chat if anybody has a question. There's a pronunciation guide. There's an about the adventure, and then here's the main chapters: A Tale of Two Cities. El Tyrol has fallen. That's chapter 2. Chapter 3 is Avernus. Chapter 4 is Sword of Zariel. Chapter 5 is Escape from Avernus. And so there's 5 main chapters. Goes through page 154. That's the end game section is 154. And then you got the Baldur's Gate Gazetteer. And this actually is a section. Looks like about a 50-page section on the history of Baldur's Gate today, Upper City, Lower City, etc. So you get a little bit of a 5th edition lore for Baldur's Gate. And if I remember right, there used to be, I don't know if it was just the Gazette, the Gazetteer, or the Baldur's Gate Gazetteer, but that seems to be calling back something I remember from a long time ago that TSR would do, maybe Wizards of the Coast even when they first took over. Appendix B or Appendix A is diabolical deals that involves infernal contracts and archdevil charms. And then Appendix B is infernal war machines. You get stat blocks and stuff on infernal war machines. Appendix C is magic items. Appendix D is creatures. We'll go through some of those. Looks like that they got like let's see, Yenogu. I know Yenogu is an Out of the Abyss as a demon lord, so I'm assuming that's just a repeat of the. And I can't remember if Baphomet was an Out of the Abyss or not, but we'll see when I take a look. Maybe it'll remind me. Appendix E is Infernal Rapture menus. Okay. Appendix F is story concept art, and Appendix G is an infernal script. So it looks like maybe the font or letters or something for an infernal script. And then there's a list of maps. So let's crack this bad boy open and see what there is. There's a pronunciation guide right here at the beginning. You can kind of see that, and it which I think is nice, because people are, myself included, are either like, I don't know how to say that, or else I think I know how to say it, and then it turns out that I've been saying it differently from everybody else for years or whatever. So, for example, Zariel is Zariel or Zariel, but it looks like the emphasis is definitely on the Zar or the on the Zar or the Zer. So, all right, about the adventure, it says the holy city of Elturel has disappeared from the Forgotten Realms and descended into Avernus, the first layer of the Nine Hells. So that's what Avernus is, first layer of the Nine Hells. Remember, if you have a question out there, just put it in chat, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. That's really the main thing I'm wanting to do with this chat, is to look stuff up for people if they're curious. This event came about as a result of an infernal bargain between the archdevil Zariel, not to be, well, yeah, that is Zariel, okay, who rules Avernus, and the treacherous high overseer of Elturel, Fabius Krieg. Zariel is capturing cities and using their citizens as fodder in the ongoing conflict between demons and devils known as the Blood War. I'm pretty sure was it Mordenkainen's, I think it might have been Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes that goes a lot into the Blood War, talking about the eternal fight between demons and devils. The characters can be the heroes who descend into Avernus, save Elturel from certain destruction, and prevent a similar fate from befalling Baldur's Gate. So, so Zariel has gotten Elturel, and then next is Baldur's Gate on the list. So the people are wanting to go in, and the adventure is to go in and save Elturel, and then also prevent the same thing from happening to Baldur's Gate. So looks like you get to go to Candlekeep, which is a very famous place from I think Baldur's Gate 2 starts in Candlekeep, if I'm not mistaken. One of the Baldur's Gate games does, but it's talked about a lot. Okay, so chapter 1, if you see here, there's this kind of almost like a flow chart, a progression chart, I should say. So that's for character levels 1 through 4. And it looks like you get pressed into service by the Flaming Fist, and you're fighting cultist. I guess I won't I'll try not to be too spoilery, but if you're definitely planning on playing this, your DM may or may not want you knowing all this information. But chapter 2, Elturel has fallen. That's for character levels 5 through 6. And that looks like it looks like your first kind of going into the Nine Hells. Chapter 3 is Avernus. That's for characters levels 7 through 10. And that's where you're in Avernus, which is the first layer of hell. And then chapter 4 is the Sword of Zariel, character levels 11 through 12. The Sword of Zariel might be the key to Elturel's salvation, but to get it, so it sounds like the Sword of Zariel is actually an actual magic item. So it sounds like part of this adventure will be on a quest to get the thing that can destroy the thing. And then Escape from Avernus, that's character levels 13 and higher. The characters use the treasures they've acquired and deal with, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I don't have the back copy because, like I said, I have the premium. But I would say it probably says an adventure for character levels 1 through 13, based on what I'm reading here. So you're definitely going to be going to hell. It's got some information here on role-playing devils. And a little bit of history on Zariel. So Zariel used to be, if I remember right, she was a celestial, and then ended up, through a series of events, becoming one of a lord of hell, one of the levels of hell. There's information in here on role-playing devils. life in the nine hells. Everyone's unhappy, everything's awful. That has about that personal touch, where you can tailor it to be even worse on an individual level for your particular adventurers. And now this is interesting. I don't think I've seen this before. So chapter 1 has another one of these progression charts, and it goes from level 1 to level 4. You go here to the Basilisk Gate, you go here to the Low Lantern, you go here, you end up at Candlekeep. So it's even got it further managed so that where any individual characters or levels should be for the chapter. I don't think I've seen that. Oh, that's a nice piece of art. I don't know if you can see that, but that's Baldur's Gate, city of Baldur's Gate. Very nice. So where they've actually got it so that you can know at any point in the chapter what level they should be. So that's pretty granular, actually. Let's see here. So it looks like most of chapter 1, you're like fighting cultists and stuff, and maybe starting to learn, that there's more going on, and that there's, this stuff going on with actual hell in the city, El Turl, or whatever their name of it is. That cultist artwork is pretty common. I know that they were in Lost Mine of Found Delver, which is the standard starter set adventure, and then you've got Ultis. This is Cultist of Tiamat, so they were also in Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. I'm sure that you had some there. Okay, let's see what's next. I'm kind of go through the book here. Doesn't look like I'm getting any questions from chat, so I'll just follow my nose. Let's see here. Candlekeep. Ooh, that's a nice piece of art. There's another nice piece of art there. I guess that's a tiefling, I assume. Yeah, looks pretty cool. Tieflings are infernal. Looks pretty darn cool. Chapter 2, El Turl has fallen, and there's some pictures of some undead. So it looks like maybe get to fight some undead at some point. And again, they've done at the beginning of chapter 2, they have the progression chart, which kind of shows at which different parts of the chapter is the recommended character levels, and it's for 5 and 6. This chapter is level 5 and 6. Yeah, El Turl has actually fallen into the first level of hell, which is Avernus, or has been captured by Zariel, who's the overlord or whatever of Avernus. And it looks like that in this chapter, the characters will actually be in El Turl. So I don't quite have a grasp of where, like, if they'll be in a different plane of existence, or I don't know. But anyway, they'll be in El Turl. Ooh, that's a cool piece of art. It's really nice. Oh, it's floating above. It's floating above Avernus, so it's kind of in between the Time Material Plane and Avernus. Ooh, let's see here. The Fort Knucklebone. What the heck is a Fort Knucklebone? Chapter 3, Avernus. Okay, and it talks about Fort Knucklebone, so that must be in Avernus. So this is what that red sort of garish, that's what Avernus looks like, evidently. Not a very nice place. And again, you have the little flowchart here that shows the progression of where characters should be. So you actually go to Avernus. Talks about that there's some changes to magic that happen. For example, Avernus is the entrance to the Nine Hells, a battlefield drenched in eldritch entity or energy The magic of the weave works completely different here, manifesting in unusual ways. So there's some cosmetic modifications to spells. For example, Bigsby's hand will be a fiendish claw. Find familiar. The familiar is always going to be an imp. Let's see. Fog cloud. Moaning faces appear and fade in the yellow fog that smells like sulfur, etc. Spell still works the same, but there will be cosmetic, alterations to it just for flavor and effect. So let's see here. Telepathic communications. Demonic ichor. Ooh, flesh warping. What's this about? When do you get your flesh warped? Oh, when a creature comes in direct contact with demon ichor, the flesh can be warped. So there's a table here on page 78 in chapter 3 about how your flesh can be warped. That's pretty cool. The target's hands grow claws, which can be used as daggers. The target's eye turns black, and it gains dark vision out to a range of 120 feet. The target swells, tripling its weight. The target's ears become wings, giving it a flying speed of 5 feet. You're a demonic Dumbo. All right. There's Avernus. There's a map of Avernus. Pretty trippy looking. And I think this may be the map. I think that's more of a traditional map. I've heard something in here. There's a pull-out map in here that evidently it's not supposed to be taken literally, but it's very representative and abstract. So evidently they told the artist to just have fun. So let me see if I can pop this thing out and we'll take a look at it. So I love fold-out maps. Big fan of the fold-out map. Let's see if I can get this. It's coming. All right. So, wow, that's pretty crazy. Huh. Now, this is the city of Elturel. That's the city that's actually been taken from the prime material plane into the hell, first level of hell. And then this is a bigger version of that map that I was just looking at in the book. And evidently this map isn't supposed to be taken literally. It's as far as distances and that sort of thing. A lot of it is sort of abstract, but it looks really cool. All kinds of cool little details and stuff in here. Little runes, and I'll try to give a closer look at this thing. It's pretty crazy. See if we can get a better look at that. That's kind of weird. I don't know if you can really tell, but over here is roughly analogous to where Mount Doom would be on the Tolkien maps of, like Mordor and Middle Earth and all that. I wonder if that's on purpose, kind of like a little nod to Tolkien. Who knows? But it's an interesting looking map. And there's a note. Let me get back to where I was. There was a note where they're talking about something about how you interpret that map. So let me see if I can get back there. Hold on a second. I'm making sure the chat works. I'm sure it does, but okay. Yeah. Like I said, if anybody's out there's got a question, I'll be happy to look it up. That was really kind of what I was hoping to get going with this stream, was to make it interactive. But let me go back. Let's get to what it was saying about that map. Okay, using the poster map. That's the big thing we just looked at. The poster map depicts a region of Avernus, a wasteland. So that's not even all of Avernus. It's just a region of it. a wasteland of dizzying proportions that has been warped by eons of demonic invasion. Travelers face a hellscape that disorients the senses and defies attempts to map it accurately. So it says standard cartographic methods are useless since distances in Avernus are impossible to gauge and locations sometimes shift supernaturally. That's pretty cool. As such, the map shows pictorial impressions of locations that only hint at their distances from one another. It is by no means something that can or should be taken literally. No scale, that's interesting, is marked on the map, and the placement of locations based on the memories of an intrepid yet insane cartographer. Poster map is riddled with strange imagery and unique cartography, etc., etc. Oh, this is neat. Again, if you're a player wanting to play this, do it at your own risk so that you don't ruin things for yourselves or your fellow players. But evidently, the characters discover a property of the map. It talks. Whenever they arrive at one of the locations described in this chapter, the voice of the cartographer emanates from the map to reveal a clue. That's kind of neat. The map speaks only to utter its clues, so you can't get a conversation going with the map. So mapping Avernus, there's some rules here on how to, if you try to map it, madness is likely to start setting in. So, but there are, I guess just like you kind of know something's a general direction, but you don't know how far away it is or anything like that. And it's very hard to map. So I had a player in my last adventure or my last campaign when we were doing Out of the Abyss that loved to map, was constantly mapping. This adventure I'm on right now, which is Tomb of Annihilation, my main campaign I'm running, that hasn't come up. But it would be interesting to see if they would try to do the same thing. So there's a couple of interesting pieces of art there that you can see. Looks like I think, what do you call the crow people? The Keku? Yeah, Kinkus. So it's Mad Maggie and Mickey, which is the big demon thing, I'm assuming is Mickey. And then Mad Maggie has two loyal Kinku. There's a Madcap, which I guess is an even worse version of a Red Cap, I'm guessing. There is a Raga Draga, which is a boar person, I guess. Looks pretty cool. Raga Draga. Yeah, it's a wereboar. Oh, Raga Draga is a person who is a wereboar. So it's not a new creature type. It is a wereboar. Here's a really sweet piece of art. It says the warlords of Avernus conquer the hellish wastelands and infernal war machines powered by souls. And if you remember, one of the things from the table of contents was war machines. So got warlords of the Avernian wastelands. It's got this infernal war machine combat. So it sounds like that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Quest for the sword. Mentioned earlier when we were reading it, it sounds like one of the things the players will be doing is trying to find the sword of Zariel. So start getting to that here. It's pretty cool little maps, some cool stuff in here. An abyssal chicken. Why not? If you haven't heard yet of the abyssal chicken and you haven't seen the abyssal chicken, there's the abyssal chicken. As some people describe it, it's like a horrid boot. So you've heard of murder chickens. Usually when describing velociraptors in D&D, this is literally an infernal or an abyssal chicken. Love that abyssal chicken from Popeyes. So what else we got here? Just again, I'm just kind of doing a look through, throwing out my first impressions. Looks crazy, looks fun. Definitely not your standard D&D adventure as far, it's not going to be just some dungeon crawl or something like that. You're literally you're leaving the prime material plane and descending into at least the first level of hell, of the 9 hells. Now, not hell in the religious sense, hell in a fantasy sense, maybe more like, Dante's Inferno, or described, I think it levels of hell or circles of hell, but this should not be taken. I mean, I'm a Christian. I do not take this as literal hell. It's just a, entertainment fantasy product. So Do not take this as a theological treatise. Path of Devils. Are we on a? Let's see here. Are we on a new chapter? No, this is interesting. We haven't gone into a new chapter, but into the chapter we get another one of these progressions that show what are the appropriate levels, character levels for certain areas on this Path of Devils. Tiamat's Monument, Bel's Forge, Uldrak's Grave, Wrecked Flying Fortress, etc. So there's all these areas. This kind of reminds me of playing Out of the Abyss, where there was a stretch of Out of the Abyss when you're in the Underdark, where you could just encounter all these cool areas that may or may not be central to the plot, but they were just really interesting areas to check out. And there's some stat blocks in here for... I'm not sure why these are here, but I've got a Dragonborn lawful evil. I've got a Turtle that's lawful evil. I'm not sure why these guys are in the adventure, but they're in Avernus and on the Path of Devils, evidently. Ooh, this dude looks sweet. Torgar Stillfist. This dude looks freaking sweet. Oh, sorry about bumping the mic. He's like a Minotaur with a flaming scimitar, kind of. 2 flaming scimitars. Pretty sweet. There's another sweet piece of art. So, and there is Cibriex. What the heck is a Cibriex? Oh, it is a Cibriex. Okay, so a Cibriex is a huge fiend demon, and it's pretty nasty looking. And it's got the stat blocks. We haven't even gotten to the appendixes yet, or appendices, which have all kinds of stuff. Oh, it is a... What in the crap is this? It's like an evil demonic snail called a bone whelk. And you get a little stat block there. Pretty crazy stuff. Let's see here. Trying to move it on. Avernus is definitely this chapter. It looks like Zariel has a flying fortress. It looks like if as long as we've been in chapter 3 here, looks like chapter 3 is definitely the meat of the campaign. Let's see, chapter 2 goes from page 52 to 71, so roughly 20 pages. Chapter 1 goes 10 to 50, so it's roughly 40 pages. And then chapter 3 goes from 74 to 133, so almost 70 pages. It definitely looks like the longest chapter. Chapter 4, which is the Sword of Zariel, goes 134 to 145, so it's basically 10 pages roughly. And then Escape from Avernus is 146 to 154, so about 8 pages. So chapter 3, Avernus, is definitely the biggest chapter. I'm surprised they didn't split it up a little bit with as much stuff that's going on in here. A roaming encounter. Hold on, my cats are acting freaky. Cat, stop. Hold on. Stop. Hey, stop. Stop. Welcome to hang out. All right. You can have a roaming encounter. Smiler, the Defiler. Oh, yeah. There he is right there. And he's a medium fae elf. He's a chaotic evil fae elf. Crazy. I'm not going to ruin it with snack blocks. Okay, chapter 4. I'm not going to throw out the stat blocks. Chapter 4, Sword of Zariel. And then there's yet another one of those progression charts that show you level appropriate stuff. Just in case there's new people, I see that the chat number is going up and down a little bit, staying steady around 4 or 5. If there's anybody new in here, I would love to have questions. I'd really, if you got questions, I'll go in here and do my best to answer them for you. So this is the Sword of Zariel. One of the areas is called the Scab. I can do without that. Little dungeon. And I've seen a few maps here and there, like mini dungeons or buildings and stuff like that. There's the sword. It's like Excalibur, but not. There's another little kind of a dungeon, or not a map, but an area map. A lot of stuff going on here. It looks pretty cool. Yenogu. And that is a demon lord. So he was with he was in Out of the Abyss. So this is pretty cool. You got Yenogu fighting a celestial, a blind celestial, I guess. That's a pretty nice piece of art. Oh, that is sweet. That is Zariel. Zariel's the blind celestial. Okay. Pretty cool. So here is and this is really nice, sort of not the story it tells, but the artwork says this stained glass series of stained glass type images showing Zariel's story, how Zariel basically fell trying to do the right thing and then ended up becoming one of the lords lording over the first level of hell. Looks like that Zariel surrendered to Asmodeus at some point. Escape from Avernus. Here's some more cool art. So that's another stained glass kind of thing showing Zariel, and that shows Zariel as Zariel is now. So Zariel's not had the best outcome to her career or his career. I'm not even sure if Zariel is male or female, or if that even applies to Celestials. So, oh yeah. Now, see, I don't have the probably the only D&D adventures I don't have are the Rise of Tiamat and Elemental Evil. So I don't have Tiamat stat blocks, but now I do. Got me some Tiamat right there. And it looks like she's a gargantuan fiend, chaotic evil, CR 30. So if you think about it, the Mac, this earlier said it would take characters to level 13. So CR is based on a party of 4 characters at that level have a chance of defeating the foe or the challenge without a character death. So this is saying that Tiamat is so powerful, you would need a party of 4 level 30s to be able to defeat her with a decent chance of nobody dying. So if you're level 13 or 14 or 15 and you got a party of like 5 or 6, you ain't fighting Tiamat. That's probably why you need the sword, but I don't know. I haven't read the actual adventure yet. So sorry about I hate autofocus. Come on, focus. There you go. Tiamat's bad to the bone. It's got 615 hit points, armor class 25, all kinds of damage immunities, all kinds of condition immunities, legendary resistances, limited to magic immunity, innate spell casting, discorporation. If you kill her, she just discorporates and goes back to her domain in the 9 hells. So I guess you have to be on her domain to kill her, probably. Multiple heads. Regeneration. If she has at least 1 hit point, she gets 30 hit points at the start of her turn. This is nasty. She's got a multi-attack. She can use her frightful presence and then 3 attacks, 2 with her claws and 1 with her tail. She get legendary actions. Black dragon head, blue dragon head, green dragon head, red dragon head, and white dragon head, and they have the related breath weapon they would have, like a white dragon head gets cold breath, black dragon head gets acid, etc. And it has a bite. She has a bite, so that's nasty. They're talking about contracts and breaking of contracts. Given that this is like, devils and hell and all that, there's probably, and it even had a thing in the table of contents about contracts and infertile contracts and all that. So that's probably going to play a part in here. There's a picture of Zariel, or an art piece, just smiting somebody. I don't know if an evil creature can smite, but that's some smiting happening right there. Talks about destroying a demon lord and making a deal with Zariel and Zariel. The Field of Flames, River's Edge, showdown with Zariel. Looks like that at some point the characters get close to Archduke Zariel of Avernus. trying to see what happens here. Yeah, it looks like it's possible that they could fight Zariel. I won't get into all that. Here's a picture of the Blood War. Some pretty crazy stuff right there. Nice painting. Let's see here. Now, and then here in the back, like I said, you've got the Baldur's Gate Gazetteer. And this is, it's not an appendix. It's not a chapter per se. It doesn't say like chapter 6 or anything. It just said Baldur's Gate Gazetteer. And there's pages and pages of information on Baldur's Gate. So if you want the updated 5th edition information on Baldur's Gate for the current time frame that 5th edition is in for the Forgotten Realms, here's some good information on Baldur's Gate. Or if you've been wanting to run Baldur's Gate set adventures, or if you've been doing it anyway but you wanted some official material, then here's some Baldur's Gate stuff. A lot of information, some artwork for Baldur's Gate. And Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter are two of the more famous cities in the Forgotten Realms because of the computer games, right? So you've got Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter, and I never can. Is it Luskan? I'm trying to remember. I know there's one other major city that's kind of a dump. I think it's Luskan. I could be wrong. There's Baldur's Gate. Nice map. That'd have been nice to get that as a fold-out map too, but we got 2 fold-out maps because that one's double-sided. Lots of city landmarks. Nice stuff. This goes on for a ways. You get, this is almost like a small splat book within the larger adventure. All kinds of information on, got random tables on outer city threats and denizens and reactions inside the city and all kinds of cool stuff. Got a couple of NPCs. And then there's some random tables and stuff for traveling around Baldur's Gate. Pretty cool stuff. You could probably just take this Baldur's Gate section and use it for a lot of homebrew if you wanted. And then you get some character backgrounds that are specific to Baldur's Gate. Let's see, there's, well, it's not specific. It's just, yeah, there are new backgrounds suitable for creating characters. And then there are, not only are there new backgrounds, but there are notes on the existing backgrounds that are out there, like Acolyte, Charlatan, Criminal, Entertainer, etc., and adapting them to like if they came from Baldur's Gate or if they're like in the Baldur's Gate area. So you can adapt those existing backgrounds. And then there's a background called Faceless, which a faceless character adventures behind the mask of a public persona. This persona is as natural to them as their hidden true face, but it disguises their identity. Roll on the faceless persona to determine your persona, or work with your DM. So, let's see. It just says, being who you are, you can never be a hero. Whether due to your class, your people, your family, or your sins, something about you prevents you from effectively pursuing the path you've chosen. That doesn't stop you, though. You just wear a mask. So you're kind of like a proto-vigilante, masked adventurer, superhero type. And you get dual personalities. Folk hero, is this new? Guild artisan. Hermit. I think some of these are already are existing. Yeah, these others are just notes. Folk hero, guild artisan, hermit, outlander, sage, noble, soldier, urchin. So I guess the only new background in here is the faceless. I don't see any other brand new backgrounds. So, all right, what else? Dark secrets, conspiracies, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And I guess there's this dark secrets section. So it sounds like if you're rolling up new characters for this adventure specifically, it says during character creation, once players have developed their own characters, they should collectively choose a dark secret shared by the entire party. Every member of the party is entangled in this dark secret, regardless of how new they are to the city or how incorruptible their morals. Maybe they're witnesses, maybe they're covering for a friend, etc., etc. And at least one NPC in Baldur's Gate knows the party's dark secret. And there's a who knows table with a list of NPCs, so somebody knows the dark secret. There's blood on the character's hands. Let's see what the dark secret is. It looks like murder is one of the dark secrets. Theft is one of the dark secrets. A failed coup is one of the secrets. All right, Appendix A, diabolical deals. So this gives information on making deals with devils, which you don't want to do, what devils want, what devils offer, the infernal hierarchy. Very interesting. Infernal contracts. And it's just got all kinds of types of contracts, from baby dolls to a damned wretch to a song of the devil to written in stone. All kinds of crazy stuff in here. Infernal war machines. So there's the information on the war machines, or some pictures of the war machines, I should say. And I talked earlier in the chapter on Avernus that a lot of the higher ranking devils or whatever, they wage war with these infernal war machines. And there's the Devil's Ride, which almost looks like a little motorcycle, to the Demon Grinder, which just looks like this big crazy thing. The Tormentor, which looks more like a car, and I don't even know what a scavenger looks like. That's that thing. Where's the scavenger? There. I don't even know. Who knows? It's kind of like the Wacky Races gone horribly, horribly wrong. You get stat blocks for infernal war machines. They're vehicles, so they're not intelligent. The Demon Grinder is gargantuan. The Tormentor is huge. The Scavenger is huge, and the Devil's Ride is just a large vehicle. Looks like you can have mishaps like locked steering, engine flare, damaged axle. This almost seems like Car Wars from Steve Jackson Games, but in D&D, which could be a lot of fun. I mean, the dinosaur racing in Tomb of Annihilation is pretty crazy. So the Infernal War Machines combat could be pretty crazy. Infernal War Machines are made of infernal iron and bristle with spikes, blades, chains, and siege weapons. An Infernal War Machine's engine roars a bass, growling rumble with an undertone of agonized screams as its furnace burns souls for fuel. That's awful, but I guess it should be because they're infernal. It's got stat blocks for Infernal War Machines, for running and repairing them, and for guidelines for handling chases in Avernus. I got to admit, that sounds pretty fun. And I hope maybe people in the DM's guild or something will homebrew some other ones. Crashing into creatures, fiendish variations, weapon stations. You got infernal screamers, flamethrowers, acidic bile sprayer. You got armor upgrades, magical gadgets, chases. I love it. It seems like it really. I'm going to pop a little thing here, so apologies, Coach. I need both the cool temperature and the energy. This office gets warm, and I can't run fans or air conditioner and hear anything, or else you can't hear anything on the video. So, again, I'm about getting pretty close to the end of the book. Do you have any questions? If anybody's out there in chat and has questions, I would be happy to answer them. That was kind of one of the main reasons I wanted to do this live stream, was to answer, to be interactive. But anyway, magic items. Here we go. Getting into the magic items. Appendix C, we've got a battle standard of infernal power, which to me, I assume that was I was in the back of my head thinking that was like an electric guitar or something, like that sweet, sweet guitar the dude in Mad Max Fury Road had. You got a helm of Devil Command, gauntlets of Flaming Fury, Fane Eater, Hellfire weapon, Helm of Devil Command, Infernal puzzle box, Infernal tack. A Narguzone devil binds a nightmare, and a nightmare is like, the crazy horse with flames on its hooves and all that. To its service with Infernal tack, which consists of bridle, bit, rein, saddle, stirrups, and spurs. Matalotok. It's a legendary weapon. Matalotok, the Frostfather, is an ancient hammer fashioned by Thrym, god of frost giants. Favored weapon of the demon lord Kotskiski, I guess. We got a comment from Brian Marota, and I'll read that here in a second. But the favored weapon of the demon lord Kotisk something. Matalotok is frigid to the touch and wreathed in mist. You are immune to cold damage while handling Matalotok. This is a legendary weapon. Whenever it deals damage to a creature, the hammer radiates a burst of intense cold in 30-foot radius. Sphere, each creature in that area takes an average of 10 3d6 cold damage. So there's that hammer again. And you've got a Shield of the Hidden Lord. Got a soul coin, obsidian flint, dragon plate. Oh, that sounds pretty cool. All right, so Brian commented, just reliving my youth, started collecting the books. I don't remember how to play, but I looked for all of the special editions to collect. So yeah, and that's the one I have. It's just because what I had at the local game store. That's the only one he had in, which I'm fine. I don't go out of my way to get them. And then, but they look great. These covers from Hydro 74. Now, I will say, Brian, that this is a great time to get into D&D. There's a ton of people either coming back to the hobby or getting into it for the first time because people are really enjoying not only the 5th edition D&D game set or rules, mechanics, but they're putting out really cool stuff for it. For example, this Descent into Avernus. Rylan Joran, what happened to Bell? Well, give me some context on what you mean by Bell, B-E-L. Was that one of the Lords of Hell or a demon lord? I'm feeling like I should know what that means, but it's not jumping right up to me. Now we got Baphomet. No, I don't see a B-E-L. Stranger Things, Brian. Yeah, that definitely helped out a lot too. Here's some stats on the Sword of Zariel. I'm imagining they're going to say that's an artifact. Let's see what they say about it. Yeah, it's an artifact. It will only attune to a creature the sword deems worthy, but it's an artifact longsword, and I'm not going to throw out all the stats on it. The guy who replaced Zariel was overthrown again by her. I don't know. Let's see if Bell's in here. Rylan? Okay. Let's see if they're mentioned at the beginning. Well, now there's a Belline Stelmane, but that's one of the 4 dukes on the Council of 4 that governs Baldur's Gate. Let's see if there's any other bells in here. I would make a bad bells and whistles pun, but that would probably not be appreciated. All right, Bell is a pit fiend. Okay. Let me see if Bell's in here. I don't see Bell listed. I think Bell might be out of the picture. It's got Bell's story in here. So, Zariel's story in here. So let me go back to Zariel's story and see if it says anything about that. Let's see. Okay. The Lord of the Nine commended Zariel for her battle prowess and the strength of her convictions. He offered her rulership of Avernus, much to Bell's chagrin. By swearing fealty to Asmodeus and the Nine Hells, Zariel could bring her rage to bear against the demons and continue to fight, etc., etc. And that's about all I see Bell mentioned. So Bell may not be a major player in this. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, John? You say I think Bell is in Mordenkainen. I've got that. Let me grab it here in a second and see if it has any information on Bell. It doesn't look like Bell plays a key role in this, but now keep in mind that I'm just scanning through this, so there could be more information in here than I realize. I mean, Bell could be in here, but I'm kind of trying to kind of look through it and give people an idea of what's in the book, but without you can tell this guy plays with himself over cartoons. Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything about B.E.L. Bell. Didn't buy that book. Too many retcons for my taste. Now, Rylan, are you talking about that you didn't buy Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes because there were too many retcons? Let me grab. I've got Mordenkainen's here. Let me grab it. Retcons, that's a retro continuity, Brian. That's where they go back and change, like in a comic book or a TV show or movies or a game or something. They'll say, oh, well, that's actually not how it was. It was really like this. Usually they're trying to fix some other problem with storytelling or continuity. Let me get my Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and see what I can figure out here. I can find it. I've got it. There it is. All right. All right. Let's look up Bell. All right, John, here we go. You're looking at Fiend Folio 2. All right. Bell. What's up, Bell? Now, Bell's a devil, not a demon lord, right? So let's look up the devils, not the demon lords. Bell. Diabolical cults, Lords of the Nine. Lords of the Nine. Here we go. Let's see if we can find anything out. And if I can't find anything in here, we can always gurgle it. See what's going out there. Okay, so as of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Zariel is the ruler of Avernus. So let's see what they say about Zariel and Bell. Yeah, when Zariel supplanted the pit fiend Bell as the ruler of Avernus, that change signaled a major shift in the devil's tactics. Her temperament and reckless maneuvering stood in dark contrast to Bell's approach, which relied on his expertise in logistics and defensive tactics. Bell remains one of her chief lieutenants, and he doesn't discourage her reckless tactics in the hope that she will overextend her forces and suffer defeat that leads to her removal. So if he's one of her lieutenants, I'm surprised that he's not mentioned more in the book, and he might be mentioned more in Descent into Avernus. I'm just now, really looking at the book. So hope that is interesting on Bell. Any other questions before I finish looking through the book? Feel free to ask questions anytime, but kind of why I'm paused right now would be a good time before I dig back in. We were in the magic items, and I'll scan back in. I'll jump back into the stuff talking about Zariel and see if Bell is mentioned. So yeah, but the Sword of Zariel looks pretty sweet. It belonged to the angel Zariel before her fall from grace. Fashioned from celestial steel, it gives off a faint glow and hum. The weapon chooses who can attune to it and who can't. It desires a wielder who embodies bravery and heroism. So it's sentient, lawful good. Creatures. There's some pretty crazy creatures in here. Now, there's an Amnezu, which is a medium fiend, lawful evil. And then Baphomet is in here, but Baphomet was in, I'm pretty sure, in Out of the Abyss. So if you have Out of the Abyss, then you've got the stats for Baphomet as well. He's a demon lord. Now there's a thing in here on page 228 that says variant devil summoning. Summon devil once per day. Oh, so it's a variant. These Amnazus can summon devils. I was thinking it was saying like since you're in Avernus, maybe there's a variant on summoning devils, but no, it's to that creature. There's a Bulazai, which is pretty creepy looking right there. That would have caused some satanic panic in the 80s. And then there's a pretty crazy picture right there. That's pretty. A lot of atmosphere in this book for sure. Fist of Bane, Black Gauntlet of Bane, Night Blades, Reaper of Baal, Death's Head of Baal. These are like cultist and stuff. Necromite of Merkel. Yikes. They've got a Skull Flail and Claws of the Grave. Skull Lasher of Merkel, Master of Souls. There's some pretty cool looking stuff in there. Fiendish Flesh Golem, Hell Wasp, and Hollyphant. Hollyphants are gentle, stalwart creatures native to the upper planes. Good aligned deities and angels use them as messengers and helpers. Hollyphants treasure friendship and honesty. So there is a celestial elephant. There you go. Why not? Ooh, that looks pretty cool. What is that thing? That dude looks sweet. Here's Narguzan riding a nightmare. That's a sweet piece of art right there. You got various devils, creepy stuff. You've got a red cap, which are little evil fey creatures. Those come from like folklore way back in the day, like hundreds of years ago. You've got a tiny monstrosity that's chaotic evil. It's a mischievous winged cat, as big as a house cat. So it's chaotic neutral, not chaotic evil. So that's about right for a cat. Thank goodness my cats don't have wings. You got Yonogu, who's another demon lord. I guess he's in the Blood War or something, shows up. Maybe him and Baphomet. And then you've got Archduke Zariel of Avernus. So got her stats, and she's challenge 26, which is pretty high. And it says Zariel recently defeated the demon lord Kochki, I guess, and took his hammer, Matalatok, which we talked about earlier. So she's immune to cold damage. And Zariel has some pretty sweet stuff in here. And she's got a flaming halo, which is kind of, or a flaming sort of half halo. She's pretty nasty. I'm not going to throw out her stats or anything like that, just for not being in spoilers. And here is the menu for the Infernal Rapture. I don't know exactly how that plays in or when, but you've got it. Looks like that they've got it in Infernal script and in common, or English, if you will. And then there's some concept art and cool stuff like that. So there's some more concept art. More concept art. Whoop, sorry about that. What else we got? Yeah, more concept art. There's some infernal machines. More concept art. And then the infernal script. So if you can see, whoop, nope, got ahead of you. There you go. The infernal script. And then again, here's a shot of the premium cover. So without trying to give away the entire ball of wax, that's basically kind of what you're getting into thematically and stuff with Descent into Avernus. So, you know, if you're looking to get your players off the prime material plane and, you know, into the, because other editions of D&D obviously have covered, you know, the Abyss and the 9 levels of hell and all that. But this is the 5th edition stuff with some new material, and then you've got all of that great chapter on Baldur's Gate. So there's some good stuff in there. And then again, you get this crazy fold out map, which one side is Elturel, which is the city that is kind of being taken down into hell from the prime material plane, and Baldur's Gate next. And then here's that section of Avernus that, again, it's like the distances and locations and whatnot aren't supposed to be taken exactly literally, and stuff can change. So anyway, all right, so that kind of gives you an idea. Oh yeah, John, there is a pull-out map. Sorry, I'm just not. Yeah, Holly font, because my player always wants to adopt something. There you go. You can't go wrong with a celestial elephant, John. And yeah, there is a pull-out map. I actually grabbed this before you asked that, but since you haven't seen it yet, I'll give you another look. I cover it more at the beginning of the video, but that's a section of Avernus right there. And then this is Elturel, the city that it's kind of floating above. It's kind of floating above Avernus, but below it's still not in the prime material plane anymore. And there's just a couple of things I have to point out here. You know, I pointed out earlier that mountain right there on the map really does seem to be kind of an homage to where Mount Doom would be on the map of Middle Earth. And then here, I'm looking, and I mean, that looks a heck of a lot like Sauron's tower from the movies. So, you know, maybe coincidences or maybe little homages or whatever. Yeah, John, I agree. Hold on a second, Brian. I'll answer your question. John, yeah, I love the art of 5th edition. They're doing a really good job. All of the books, that's one thing I've mentioned a lot in every book I've reviewed. The production design and the art and everything is really excellent. So really impressive. Brian, you know, if I were a collector, that's the key. You're saying if you were a collector, would you get the Beetle and Grimm edition? If I was a completionist who had the money, yes. But they're expensive, and I'm not that much of a collector. I do like to get all the books, and sometimes I'll get the premium versions of the books. But the Beetle and Grimm stuff and the other boxes that have all kinds of crazy stuff into it or in there, you know, that's not my thing. Now, if my group wanted to go together and pitch in, you know, I'd be like, sure, I'd pitch in for that, and then we could all use it. But me personally, that's just not something that important to me. Like, you know, they do the stuff for D&D, and the Beetle and Grimm stuff is nice. Don't get me wrong; it's very nice. If you got the money, sure, why not? And then like the Star Trek Adventures RPG had this big board cube thing, you know, and it was very nice, but there's no way that, you know, I'm going to spend that kind of money. You know, we're single income, married, kiddo. So, you know, if I had all kinds of disposable income, maybe. So anyway, hold on a second. Why is the alternate cover not in that collection? Are you talking about for the Beetle and Grimm? I don't know. That's a good question. For that cost, do you think it would come with the regular cover and the premium cover? Rylan Joran says, by the way, thanks for showing the book to us. I'm watching your stream from Switzerland. It's 3 a.m. here. I can't get the special edition, though. There is simply no place to buy it here. Well, you know, I've got a friend over in England that I send stuff to sometimes. You know, Rylan, if you wanted to cover the cost of the book and the cost of shipping, I'll go. I mean, my local game store has about 5 of them right now. I'll be happy to go get you one and send it to you, but you'd have to, you know, cover it with PayPal or something like that. So send me a message, you know, through my YouTube channel, or tweet me at Shane Plays, or you can email me at shane@shaneplays.com, which is here. And I'm not going to overcharge and try to make money off of you, but, you know, but if you'll, I'll research the shipping cost and then, go from there. So more than happy to do that for you. You're welcome. Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm about to wrap it up. Any other questions? Doesn't necessarily have to be about Descent into Avernus. Any DM rule questions or D&D comments or questions in general, or it can be about Descent into Avernus. Whatever you want. Personally, if you're curious, I think this is a neat adventure. I've run out of the Abyss. Now we're on Tomb of Annihilation. It takes my group about a year, if not longer, to get through, because we play once a week for 2.5 hours a week. So, every now and then we have to take a week off. So it takes us a while to get through a campaign. And there's so many good adventures that are, I've got, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I've got Dragon Heist. Now, we've got the Ghost of Saltmarsh that came out not that long ago. That's like 4 adventures connected, or sort of loosely connected. And then you've got that were inspired by Greyhawk. I've still got several adventures from Tales of the Yawning Portal I could run. Curse of Strahd, Storm King's Thunder. There's so many out there. I just, I would probably run this at some point. I just don't know if this would be my next adventure. But if it's what my players and everything wanted to do, then it very well could be. It looks neat. Again, remember, I have not read deeply into this at all. But on the surface, it looks pretty fun. I was going to look, let me go back to the stuff with Zariel and see if Bell is mentioned, since there were questions about Bell earlier. And Bell is evidently one of Zariel's lieutenants. Zariel's Flying Fortress. She has a 450-foot tall flying fortress. Let's see where Bell is. If Bell's now, it does say if they're caught and taken before Zariel, it says she's joined by a pit fiend general, 6 Aranese bridge officers, and a dozen bearded devils. So it's possible that pit fiend could be Bell, but they probably would have said Bell, if that's what they wanted you to, or wanted to be. But you could certainly, homebrew it and say, well, that's Bell. See if there's anything else. I'm just kind of scanning really quick. That's the only advantage to a PDF copy of a book. You can just Control F and search for Bell and wait for it to pop up. All right. Let me look at this one other thing. I'm going to shut it down. If you have any questions on magic items or NPCs or anything else, now is the time to get them down, because I'm hot up here. I'm going to turn my fans back on. But I love y'all so much. So much. I'm willing to sit here and sweat to bring you the best in D&D news and information. Showdown with Zariel. Yeah, I don't see Bell mentioned here. Yeah, I don't see Bell. So, but Bell could very, very well be in here. So, all right, I'm about to shut it down. Thanks so much for watching. And if you're into running Tomb of Annihilation, I'm currently running a note series on that, on my thoughts and everything on Tomb of Annihilation. I guess one last thing, kind of related. If you like computer role-playing games as well, which I love computer role-playing games and desktop role-playing games. I'm the co-author on a book with Matt Barton of Matt Chat. He's been out there for a long time doing really cool stuff, interviewing game developers and playing role-playing games and etc. For some reason, my printer just turned on. Anyway, I'm co-author on this. This is a very cool book. This is the 2nd edition of Dungeons and Desktops. We added about 200 pages to it, all color screenshots. We cover the Kickstarter age of computer role playing games. And yes, Brian, I could get you an autographed copy if you like. Just drop me a line at shane@shaneplays.com. I put my email up there, or tweet me at shaneplays, and I'd be happy to get you an autographed copy. So, it'd basically be, you pay for the book and shipping to you, and I'll buy it, get it to me, sign it, and send it to you is basically how it works. And I could have Matt sign it too if you'd like. So anyway, okay. Whoa, sorry about that. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching, whether you're watching live or the archive version. So, yep, you're welcome, Ryland. Thanks. Have fun in Switzerland. Follow. I'll get you. I'll mail it out to you, man. If you want me to go get you one and mail it out to you, I'm totally happy to do that. You guys take care, and I'd love to hear from you if you get into Descent into Avernus. I'd love to hear how it goes. But everybody have a good night, and we'll catch you next time on Shane Plays.